Hi everyone, welcome. I am Miss Deal Reed. I'm excited to be teaching you today. As you're jumping onto this Zoom or whatever platform we use, if you'd like to unmute yourself or just pop your camera off for a second so that you can say hi, you can just let me know that you're here. That would be great if you're comfortable. And we'll wait a couple minutes for everyone to jump in. Okay, so let me know in the chat if you were able to copy down all those vocab words or if you need another second. It's okay if you didn't finish the sketch, no worries. So today's lesson, we're gonna get started on a brand new lesson in portraiture today. So this project is not only going to just be a portrait, but I really want you to be able to show me that you have mastered some of the other techniques that we've gone over thus far this semester. So if you would either just type in the chat or you can again unmute yourself, just kind of remind me some of those things that we've done. Yeah, abstract art, we worked with figurative art and collage. So can somebody tell me again the difference between abstract and figurative art? Right, so figurative is, can be a still life, it can be a landscape, but you can tell that there was a reference to the real world. There was an actual real life reference, right? Whereas abstract art may not have that, or you may not be able to identify what the reference was. Of course, collage is when we take paper, photos, various objects, and we paste them onto a surface, either a flat surface or a three-dimensional surface. And then the last one that I really want you to think about is scaling. So we talked about the grid process, about using a grid to scale up either a part of a photograph or the entire thing. So we are going to use that again in this project. Everybody, if you got that, give me a thumbs up. So brief overview of a portrait. Of course, it is a rendering of a person. It can be from the shoulders up, but it could also be a full body image. Usually it's going to convey status. It's going to tell you something more about that person, maybe their stature, maybe the role that they have or their job. And it's going to make a statement more than just being representational. So a little brief overview as we move forward. Many portraits were seen typically as a luxury or as an elite item to have. Typically they were commissioned by wealthy people who paid to have their portraits done because this was the only way that you could have a representation of yourself. Photography hadn't been invented yet. So you'd often see people get all dressed into their finery and kind of put on all maybe their jewels or their uniform or whatever it might be. This is an official portrait, but it does qualify under some of the things that I have just mentioned. Now, an official portrait is typically of someone that's in government or at an important, it has an important station or status within maybe a company. But you're going to see these in government buildings or possibly public places or public buildings. You might see that they'll use some symbols or some official colors or kind of have a theme in that way. Now taking it back a little bit further into our ancient portraiture. As humans, of course, we have been creating images of ourselves and of others since we started making art. So there's prehistoric portraiture. There's a lot of examples of portraiture through the years. We're going to start here in Egypt, Greece, Rome. These often were seen in public. They were public art. They may have been in the middle of like a gathering place, maybe a plaza, right? And often they were dedicated to either the emperors, gods, someone who held some kind of stature there. They could be paintings, they could be sculptures, they could be made out of anything. Anything that has the image of a person is a portrait. At first, these were realistic. They were pretty much true to life. But as we moved on, and especially towards some of the emperors, we started to see a shift towards the more stylized versions of these portraits. So they may have been more flattering. They may have emphasized your power. So for example, if someone was trying to portray that someone was really powerful, they might give them like broader shoulders or like a more chiseled jawline or something. So they started to become a little more idealized. Then in the 13th century, we actually see the invention of the word portrait. In the 13th and 14th century, people really started to highly value this type of art. So the old masters are artists that were working, especially they were painters, so were working before 1800. So that covers a huge swath of our art history, but the general definition is a skilled painter who worked in Europe until about 1800. Now, some of these that we're looking at may look familiar to you, they may be new to you. And obviously they do have their own style. If you look at one to the next, they don't look like the same, person painted them. However, they're pretty representational, right? You can see that these are people and that it's really just their face. It's got maybe whatever they're wearing, but it doesn't show you too much more. There's a woman reading. You'll also, of course, recognize probably our most famous portrait, Mona Lisa. So again, she's sitting, she's not really doing anything else. And then you may recognize this one on the right more as a meme. It is a self-portrait. So self-portraits can be a little bit different. Sometimes the tone is a little different. This one is going for a more playful tone. Not that that can't happen in portraiture, because it does. And it, especially as we move towards more modern portraiture, the tone starts to shift. So a little bit into the evolution of portraiture. We've got Van Gogh and Picasso. As you know from our previous classes, Picasso did abstract work, but he also did many portraits. This is from one of his portraits from the Rose period. And you started to see this shift now, where commissioned portraits were starting to become rarer. And because of that, people started to paint their friends, their family, their postman, or perhaps the boy that came to visit them in their studio and watch them paint, right? Now we're starting to see that the invention of photography makes portraiture have to be something different. So I'm going to go back just a slide. Photography became widespread, and it could very accurately render the image of a person. So portraiture needed to be more than just photography. It needed to convey something different. And so that's when we start to see this shift. And we also see, as you know, Chuck Close worked in photorealism. We talked about him as far as drawing the grids. He works in that grid format as well. And he'll use that to scale up his photos or his portraits, which are informed by photos. So although he does use photography as a medium, he's starting to marry these two different arts. And in our photorealism, that just refers to when a artist uses a photograph and then tries to recreate it to the best of their ability in a different medium. Usually painting, but it can be in different medium. Sometimes they'll manipulate the photo first, and sometimes it will look a little bit different than, right, the exact photo. So as we move into our modern portraiture and it goes beyond just representation, I want you to start to observe what are these little shifts that are happening, right? So in this first set of slides, if you're unfamiliar with Kennedy Wiley, he's a painter from New York. He's known best for these style paintings that includes natural element, flowers, leaves, foliage, along with a portrait, typically of young African-American Black men. And he likes to talk about this sort of meshing of this, the status of, and the way that we see typically African-American men represented, with a little bit of a softer aspect, bringing in the natural elements, bringing in the foliage. He was commissioned, as you can see on our right-hand side, to do Obama's portrait. Now, this is not his official portrait. This one is in the Smithsonian Gallery. They always commission photos or paintings rather of the presidents. So their photo or their paintings look very different a lot of the times than what the official portrait is. So it's really interesting to look at them and compare. Typically, especially from like JFK on, they start to be a little more casual than their official portrait. And you can kind of see that in this one. Obama's unbuttoned, he's kind of sitting, you know, forward. And it's really interesting to see the personality come through in these. And that's kind of what we're starting to see in modern portraiture. Kate Perkins is an artist working in Philadelphia. And you can see her work is also inspired by and informed by photography. In this one on the left, obviously she has taken a photograph. She did not make these people sit for as long as they would have had to in the past before photography, and then has, you know, painted from that reference. And then in the second one with the repeat, she clearly took a few photos and then collaged them together to start to create this painting. So starting to talk about the shift in style and tone. In traditional portraiture, you get an idea of the importance, the position that someone held, right? It starts to convey their status. Whereas in modern portraiture, they are aiming to do something a little bit more than just reproducing an image. It'll probably evoke some emotion, will convey some part of their personality. And it's more than just representational like a photograph would be. So it's not to say that there's not aspects of both of these things in modern and traditional portraiture, but this is sort of a just an overview of some of the bigger differences you might see. So as we move forward with this, I would love for you to look at these and let me know, or kind of just think about it for yourself, if these are a portrait or not. This is informed a lot by our current times. This was an Instagram quarantine challenge, and all of the artists or all of the folks in these next few slides are using appropriation. So appropriation is when an artist uses a pre-existing image or object and really doesn't do much to manipulate it before recreating their work. So it's kind of important that you know what the original object or artwork was in order for appropriation to kind of make sense when you view it. So as you can see here, move myself out of the way. The challenge is to recreate a classic or traditional portrait or piece of art. So I want you to just like cover the left-hand side and just see if you think you would get it if you didn't see that picture. I mean, there's no wrong answers here. Just curious, just kind of play around in your mind, right? I'm gonna go through a few more of these, and you can always come back to these. I will provide you with the recording of this so you can come back and look at this lesson again if there's any you want to look at more closely. Just this last slide has the Instagram, the original people who created the challenge, and the hashtag if you want to check out some more. There's some really interesting stuff happening with that. Everybody still with me? Give me a thumbs up. All right, so we'll go over some more of this next class, but I want to give you a little bit of an overview of what to expect as we continue with this project. So we'll make this on a 16 by 20 either art paper, or you could use a canvas board, depending on what style and medium you're working with, which you can choose again, based on our past projects. And the only thing that I'm requiring to be a part of it is that you must scale up, or you must use scaling. You have to use some aspect of that grading. So if you could just unmute or type in the chat. Again, I've got a few questions for you. I'd love to hear from at least 5 people for each of these questions. The first one is, what new ideas do you have about portraiture? If you do have any new ideas based on what we went over, or maybe there's something that I missed and you want to bring it up, right? There's all different art that can be portraiture. I certainly didn't put every portrait in the world in on this slideshow, so feel free to type that into the chat. And also, I just want to make sure that you got this one. What is the one thing that must be present in this this project that we've done before? Yes, it's scaling. Great. And I'd love to talk more to you about how you're going to go forward with that, which we'll do next class. So your assignment for today's class is to respond to one of these 2 prompts. So you can read this first article. It's not a super long article, but it's about portraiture in modern times and what it is, what maybe people think about it. So I'd love for you to tell me what your opinion is based on that article. If you do think that it should be considered a modern form of art, if you agree with the article, or if you'd like, you can contrast and compare portraits from the same presidents in their official portraits in the White House collection, which are the ones, you know, that were their official, like, stately portraits, or with the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery. So I showed Obama's. Obama does not currently have a painting in the White House gallery, so you might pick someone else. Hopefully there will be there one soon. But if you would like, you can contrast and compare those. I'm really looking for about a paragraph, maybe 2, just to let me know that you did do this, that you do have an opinion about it. No right or wrong answers on these. I'm just looking for your opinion. And then for next week, or next class rather, we're going to sign up for individual time slots. So I'll send this out to you, and I would like you to discuss with me your initial schedule, your initial sketches, who you're doing a portrait of, what style and medium you would like to work with, and think about why you want to use those. So think about why that style or that medium is going to fit that person's portrait. And you can also start to locate reference photos for this. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat, or again, you can unmute yourself, and I'm always available for any questions that you have. You can email me. You can always request an individual time slot anytime, even not for next class. If you've got any questions and you don't feel comfortable asking them here, no worries. And again, just for now, we'll be going over these either the comparing and contrasting the portraits, or you can read that article and give me a response. So I'll be here if you've got questions until our time is up for class, or you can do this on your own and submit it into our Google Classroom. So thanks, guys. And again, I'll be here until we're done. And otherwise, I'll talk to you soon.